Ayah saya kerja aje, kerja. Susah. Mak pun kerja. Mak saya bukan tak nak, mak saya nak tengok saya ni boleh berdikari ke tidak. Itu je.
Ayah sekarang kerja mana?
Mak ayah tak pasti pula dia kerja kat mana. Susah nak jumpa.
Ayah rantau mana? Dia dekat mana?
Dulu hairan lah sebab apa ayah pergi mana. Sekarang saya rasa tak ada lah rasa hairan tu sebab saya fikir mestilah ayah just kerja cari duit nak sara macam tu.
Who are the off-grids of Chow? Tucked in the heart of KL lies an area that conjures up images of negative stereotypes every time it is mentioned. Gangsterism, drugs, and sex work are often connected to Chow despite the many small traders, hawkers, and heritage shops that breathes life into Chow. It has also become a hotspot for the urban poor over the past 3 decades. While it is surrounded by multi-billion ringgit development, life in Chow does not seem to have benefited from modernization. It underwent a facelift a few years ago in an attempt to spruce up the area for tourists, but the pandemic and prolonged lockdowns seem to have reversed the hard work meant to help. Life there is cheap, riddled with poverty and drugs. Hundreds of them are homeless, including children who wander the streets hungry. These people were shunned by the society due to bad impressions. People sometimes forget that these people are also human. Going into the history of Chow Kit's history dates back to the 1850s when tin mining was established and thus attracting a large population for settlement. Standing out above the rest was none other than the wealthy businessman known as Lok Chow Kit, who created the very foundation of the area that lasts until this very day. Chow Kit continued to grow as a dense city, catering to the needs of its growing population with its variety of products while also serving as a location for many illegal activities that range from theft and drug abuse to prostitution and child selling. Chow Kit now stands as a multicultural hub for many immigrants that helped in developing it into a popular commercial site for locals and tourists.
When you enter Chow, the ambience and the environment, it's not Malaysian punya vibes. It's not something negative. Elsewhere we have ayam gepuk about that, but if you eat ayam gepuk in Chow, you will feel like you eating ayam gepuk in Jakarta.
Chow has been described as a melting pot consisting of the local residents, migrants who are mostly from Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Myanmar, and the neglected communities which include the homeless people, street children, sex workers, drug addicts, and transient users. Most of the locals reside in Tiongnan district and Kampung Baru, while the migrant communities mostly live in low-cost flats. The homeless can be seen wandering along the street or sleeping in public spaces, and the transient users mostly visit Chow for necessary activities using public transport. The majority of the people in Chow are young adults, with foreigners who make up the largest community in Chow. The site quietly sits at the intersection between Lorong Haji Hussein and Jalan Abdul Rahman Idris, surrounded by 10 to 40-year-old buildings. The site is relatively flat and has a moderate density of vegetation that can be found on site. The vegetation varies with mature trees that cover most of the north and south side of the site. The northeast monsoon wind comes around October to March and can be used to optimize cooling and improve air quality around the site. On the central part of the site, the area is exposed to sunlight but receives shade from the neighboring buildings nearby. Routes to site. Lebuh Raya Sultan Iskandar connects the site to the rest of Kuala Lumpur. The main access via Jalan Pahang takes about 3 minutes to reach the site by driving. The shortcut route linking the east side of Lebuh Raya Sultan Iskandar can shorten the duration of the journey by about 2 to 5 minutes. There are a few ways to access the site. Firstly, the public transport. The fastest public transport route near the site is the monorail at Chow Station and the bus stop at Putra Muda bus stop, which are within a walking distance of 600 meters to the site. Mode of transportation. There is a high frequency of motorcyclists in the area due to the need for easy access in narrow alleyways. Trucks can be seen loading and unloading at the back lane, disrupting the traffic flow. Road condition. The overall flow of the roads in Chow is heavily influenced by the one-way direction. Some privatized roads on site have disrupted the original city planning and caused change in traffic flow. Traffic congestion often occurs on roads occupied with pasar stalls. Overall, the road flow on site is disorganized and confusing. This is due to the mismanagement of the local authority and the lack of proper road planning. Vehicular access to site. The microsite is highly permeable as it provides many alternative ways to reach the site. However, the most common vehicular path taken to access the site is through Jalan Raja Muda. Parking on site. Illegal parking occurs on site due to the lack of government parking slots and irrelevant road planning. The roads were built in pedestrian scale in the olden days. It no longer fits into the vehicular-oriented context of Chow nowadays. The road is too narrow, causing frequent traffic congestion. Walkability. The site promotes good walkability, provided with designated pedestrian walkways which are sheltered or unsheltered. Pedestrians on site were seen using the 5-foot walkways on days that are scorching hot, while zebra crossings and pedestrian bridges were most used during rush hours and lunch break. However, the lack of tactile paving makes the site less accessible for blind or disabled users. Exiting the Chow Kit station, the lively street of Jalan Tunku Abdul Rahman is seen. At the 5-foot walkway, emptiness starts to fill in as most businesses are shut. Passers-by seem uninterested to pause and homeless individuals are seen around. The lane leading to the site seems unfriendly to walk with no proper pedestrian paths. The old and new contrasting character of the street starts to come into picture. Route 2. From Pasar Chow Kit, the vibrancy of the place is manifested, with aromas of spices and chaotic visuals of the market. Approaching the site, the vibrancy of Chow Kit starts to drop, and quietness starts to fill in. It feels as a refuge away from the chaos of the market. Views from site. Views from site is visually engaging at the front of the site with the view of the city skyline and social interaction at the eatery beside the hotel. For most parts of the view, it is blocked by high-rise buildings and eateries with no view from and into the site. The site is also facing the back alley with minimal activity. Views in. Public views on site are very open and hard to miss from Jalan Abdul Rahman Idris, while the view from Lorong Haji Hussein frames eateries, making the site hidden behind the stalls. Views from site, second floor level. The views from site becomes more permeable with more exposure of Kampung Baru and Lorong Haji Hussein 2, while the views are blocked at Lorong Haji Hussein 4 with tall cornered buildings reducing permeability to the site with a strong sense of enclosure. Clear defined edges can be seen outlining the periphery of Chow Kit and the site. Major edges of Chow Kit are permeable as Jalan Raja Muda Abdul Aziz, Jalan Pahang, Jalan Sultan Azlan Shah and Jalan Tunku Abdul Rahman distinguishes each district. Next, forming the visual edge is the Chow Kit monorail track running across separating commercial and wholesale areas. Sungai Gombak makes up the impermeable natural edge between Chow Kit and its neighbouring site. Locals perceive Jalan Raja Abdullah as a boundary between Chow Kit and Kampung Baru.
Oh no, it's a segregation, of course. Of course. Okay, I see Chow Kit as a migrant place. Migrants means they have shops, they have own business. They're already part of the community. You know, because they make it macam Chow Kit ni macam a business center for migrants lah. You know, macam imported from Indonesia ke. If you want it, you come to Chow Kit to find it. So yeah, you can say it's a very obvious segregation now, of course. Homeless, you can find it mostly in Chow Kit, and they still can survive like if they stay in Chow Kit. And it's a business center, so to get money ke, to get a job, this is the place lah.
The districts in Chow Kit can be seen in two different ways. First is the districts perceived by the locals. They are separated into 6 districts, with the wholesale district running along the center of Chow Kit and the Tiangnam residential district located on the west side of Chow Kit. Nearly all areas in Chow Kit are considered as a commercial district, though the important fact is that the community is segregated in Chow Kit, thus creating districts around their own type of community. Transient users scatter throughout Chow Kit but are mostly focused in the commercial district, while the transition to Kampung Baru clearly shows the Malay community there. The residential area on the west side of Chow Kit is mostly occupied by the Chinese community, and the institutional district is mainly occupied by hospital workers. Sex workers, immigrants and the homeless occupy the central part of Chow Kit, mostly back alleys and roadsides, with sex workers being in their own community along shophouses and immigrants working in markets or by the roadside. This shows clear segregation from the people towards the off-grids, the homeless, sex workers and immigrants. Next, Chow Kit's landmarks can be seen through 3 different perspectives: the major landmarks, locals landmarks and religious landmarks. The major landmarks in Chow Kit include the Grand Season Hotel, Federal Cinema, Plaza GM, famous Pasar Chow Kit and Chow Kit Monorail. Locals landmarks include the bridge across Jalan Tunku Abdul Rahman, University Utara Malaysia KL, Pasar Raya AJ Bas, Shell, Balai Polis Raja Board, and Sekolah Bimbingan Jalan Nakasih. The religious landmarks include Surah Al-Hijrah, Ho Beng Buddhist Temple, Guru Nanak Sikh Temple, and Masjid Jami Pakistan. Human movement can be seen throughout the site while also occupying undesignated pathways and avoiding vehicles. The secondary pathways are often used as shortcuts by pedestrians. The homeless can be found in both the primary and secondary pathways.
Vehicular movement pattern. Overall, the activities of the locals are more diverse as they go in and out of Chow Kit. The immigrants normally stay and hang around in Chow Kit due to the long working hours as they struggle to meet ends. The Pasar Chow Kit is the main hotspot in Chow Kit as it is a gathering place for the community in the area. Jalan Pahang is the busiest road in the area. Pedestrian movement pattern. Overall, the pedestrian flow is high, especially in the low-cost area around the plaza. The residents walk on foot to the eateries and the shops nearby. There's a strong sense of community among the immigrants in Choket. However, this community spirit is not shared with the locals. The community of the locals and the immigrants are separated and detached. The only point of convergence is the plaza. Behavioral pattern. The behavioral pattern of the locals often revolves around purchasing household items or fresh produce. The most heavy activity consists of eating that carries on till late night. Having multiple public access to Choket, transients often use public transportation to get to work easier or just to pass by. During lunch hour, they will go to nearby eateries. The migrants follow a similar behavioral pattern as the locals, but they are often the ones working compared to the locals who are on-site leisurely. The neglected users are divided into street kids and adults. The street kids can be seen hanging out in the inner parts of Choket, hidden from the outside world where they feel a sense of security and familiarity. The adults are Ajala Tunku Abdul Rahman as they give them a sense of security with full exposure to the surroundings, making it a safe place to rest.
Pergilah sekolah.
Bodoh-bodoh aku pun macam tak tahu yang kau suka kat Dika.
Alah kau ni.
Aku cakap kat Dika yang kau suka kat dia.
For them, Choket is their playground. Choket is their kampung, you know.
Activity. The main activities in Choket are eateries, entertainment, wholesale and market. Market activities can be defined as night markets, used good markets, and wet and dry market. The number of activity decreases after the implementation of MCO, making small eateries, entertainment, and markets to close down, leaving only established eateries and a few markets to open. This results in the streets and alleys being quiet at night. Pasarai Choket and wholesale activities remains the same as it's essential for the community to purchase and sell fresh produce. Notes. In the morning, major nodes can be seen at transportation hubs like the monorail, with markets being part of the targeted major nodes and roadside, as well as frontages of shophouses being minor nodes. In the afternoon, major nodes remains around transportation with a shift towards eateries, with minor nodes throughout junctions and market. At night, alleys become major targeted areas, with transportation areas slowly dissipating as transient users leave Choket. A number of interaction points are found near site. According to the intensity of contact points, Pasar Choket appears to have the most people in the morning and afternoon, followed by Choket Marine Station. The intensity of the nodes near the site ranges from moderate to low, as the site is never packed due to the limited pedestrian access. The types of users and their activity depends on each site. The most users are seen at the vibrant Pasar Choket and Choket Marine Station, followed by Masjid Jamid. The intensity of contact points at the mosque revolves around the 5 daily prayers. Users at nearby contact points of the site, such as Achi Mi Udang Choket, are largely local, migrant, or work in blue-collar jobs. Being known as a commercial hub, Choket is dominated by commercial and residential building types, with a substantial amount of health and religious buildings within 1 km radius. Planning restrictions. Our site is approximately 2,523.2 meters square, but after taking out 6 meters setback, 1,163 meters square of surface area is left. The plot ratio is 1:5, which means we can have a total build-out area 5 times our area site. Therefore, 4 floors can have approximately 1,453.7 meters square of area for each level. Urban grain. Coarse grain not integrating with the community leads to minimal interaction. Fine grain provides a mix of use and street life, contributing to diversity on site. However, over the years, fine grain has been taken over by coarse grain, resulting in destruction of traditional character. Urban grid. Discontinuity in organic patterns inhibits pedestrian access to facilities and amenities. Whereas grid pattern provides multiple routes and connections, its high walkability encourages pedestrian activity. Urban form. Site consists of traditional and modern built forms. Some traditional shophouses were renovated. Due to urbanization, old buildings were torn down to make room for new urban schemes. Gentrification causes the community being forced out, which results in social problems. Urban space. Building setbacks disrupt urban street life. Negative spaces are being used for parkings. Macro-urban wall. Along Jalan Raja Muda, the consistency of the building height has been interrupted by new developments such as hotels and commercial buildings. There is a contrast of textures between the first half and the rest of the row. Worn-out texture can be seen in the first half. However, recent refurbishment has been done on the rest of the row considering the brightly colored paint. Types of frontages also affect the pedestrian behavior towards the shop. Micro-urban wall. The site is defined by several towering buildings located south of the site. The major contrast between the scale of the highest building and adjacent building often gives a sense of intimidation to pedestrians nearby, looking from a section of Jalan Abdul Rahman Idris. The wide street is very exposed, thus it can cause pedestrians to search for some shelter walkway due to high sun exposure. Studying the elevation of the back alley, The half row near Jalan Abdul Rahman Idris is in good condition. A view to this part of the alley is possible to increase the sense of enclosure and street safety. However, the other parts of the road is in poor condition in both the street and the building facade. Some deterioration and mold can be seen on the walls. A view to this area should be blocked. As for the high-rise buildings being a new development, they tend to have a modern style facade with mostly glass materials.
Kid from SBJK, the mother is sex worker. So they can only get food if work, with the mother work, then baru diorang boleh makan. So one day this girl asked the mother, can I have food lah? So the mother said, okay, this girl like form 1, form 2 ya. So the mother said, okay, you want to eat, then work. The mother said, if you want rice, if you want to eat, then work lah. Okay, so the kids like very interested. They are very excited every time Jom study, but because of the mentality of the father stopped them for joining our class lah macam tu. So basically the mentality is that, so the father said, kalau kau dah bodoh, kau tak payah belajar, better kau kerja, at least you get money. You know, if you're stupid, better you go and find money. You don't have to waste your time to go and belajar. And the kids have to find money lah.
Site inspiration. A walk through Chow, despite the negative impressions that we got to the area being the red light district, Chow also gives impressions that can conjure potential solutions that can be incorporated on site. Contrasting with modern architecture, older architecture has sentimental value, standing as tangible reminders of decades and even centuries past, reflecting the history of Chow. Intimacy. Human-scale buildings allow people to congregate and increase intimacy between groups of people. Presence of diversity, variety. Chow is also well known for having a variety of commercial activities surrounding the site. Publicity, spillover. The activities that attract pedestrians into interior spaces which heighten personal experiences cater for necessary optional or social activities. Streetscape, parking, and facilities. Incorporating the facilities for barrier and safety issues. Site issues. Social segregation. There is a lack of social interaction between the communities in Chow. Loss of cultural identity. Chow is diverse in community and culture, but there's a loss in local culture. Commercial activities were taken over by the migrant community. Gentrification. Low-income communities are forced to leave their homes and communities due to gentrification, resulting in social problems such as homelessness. Lack of public realm. Site lacks positive space due to open spaces being taken over by parking spaces. Negative activities. Activities such as gangsterism, drug dealing, and prostitution occur on site. Homeless sleeping and the street leaving bad impressions to the general public. Precedent studies. We concentrated on those that assist a community's youth. The New Generation Kids and Community Centre in London was established to assist Lewisham disenfranchised youth. The Community Centre offers youth programs such as vocational and support services as well as activities for the general public. The centre's translucent facade composed of polycarbonate panels allows for visual connections between the inside and the outside, creating a welcoming ambience. Next is the Boys and Girls Club, which is situated in an area in Mexico City with the highest crime rates. It was established to provide a safe environment for after-school activities for youth. It promotes positive values through play, art, and learning. The buildings are zoned in the same way with Building A for educational learning, Building B for arts, and Building C for sports activities. The club also includes areas such as parks that serve as gathering spaces for people to connect. Program. Looking at Chow's past, present, and possible future, we notice the good, bad, and ugly of the site. All of these are taken into consideration when proposing programs for the community. The programs we are proposing are a visit center in the hopes that Chow history becomes passed on from generations to generations. Culture hub, a public realm, a cafe, a common ground are proposed as well as to close the social gap between the community. Workshop spaces, learning spaces, and small healthcare facilities are also considered to help the youth to have a better chances for the future and better quality of life. The massing is carved to be facing local eateries to enhance and value positive local identity that has been overshadowed. A linkage between the main road and backlane is created to bridge the old and the new. The utilization of the backlane is a metaphor of breaking the negative stigma of people towards the homeless in Chow. Connections are established with a playful form to create a home-like playground for the homeless kids, putting emphasis into the openness and engagement with surroundings. The KLCC view is also given emphasis. Various activities in the urban room. Create a center of trade and common ground for immigrants and local, as well as providing accommodation for street children. The volumes on ground floor are subtracted to create a flexible flow for the public space. The focus on the ground floor is inspired by the homeless who lives on the street. An off-grid flow in the building is created between the grid lines. The flexibility of spaces is a metaphor of hoping to evoke the change of mentality of people towards Chow. Project Impact. By providing them with opportunities, they are able to have a brighter future. Then with accessible healthcare services, their quality of life will improve. A positive environment will improve the children's social behavior and psychological health. Lastly, the feeling of acceptance within a community after being stigmatized by society. The NGOs in Chow aims to improve the city through underprivileged kids and adults. By implementing the Youth Care Center, the project will promote sustainable economic growth by providing more job opportunities through skill-based workshops. A place where communities gather, reducing segregation while maintaining the established goals for a safer and sustainable city.
In the end, human dignity has no nationality. It is inherent in all people, citizens and non-citizens alike, simply because they are human. Everyone deserves to be in the grid.